Oh boy, we're here. We are here. It's time. I have been dreading this review for so long because I don't know, man. It's so fun. Halo. That's right, Halo has a TV show. The most popular video game of all time, if not one of the most popular video games of all time, with a dedicated lore behind it and fan base, almost as vocal as some of those complaining about other science fiction or fantasy properties where they introduce certain types of people into the storylines. This is a world that people love. I, however, am not one of those people. This might be controversial for such a jarring review, but I have never played a full campaign of Halo. I think my extent of the video games comes to maybe playing a couple just like games against friends where we shoot each other and stuff. I did not enjoy it that much. I every time I've played that game, I've been like, yeah, it's fine. I don't really care. You drive people, you run over people with like a quad or something. It's fine. I don't give a shit. But I have family and I have friends who are dedicated to this franchise. I know people who read the books. I know people who support every game, who play every game, who are hesitant to watch this show because of stuff it does. And because of that, I think I know enough about Halo to understand the gist of what's happening. So that being said, I know enough about Halo where I could go, okay, yeah, this isn't maybe what's it's supposed to be. This is a little different when I'm seeing a different interpretation of that world. So cool. Halo, it's getting a TV show. It makes sense. You want your big property. I compared Halo before to this is your Mandalorian. You want to do episodic adventures, and each episode have these cool characters in these masked uniforms going around and doing these things, solving these crimes or these problems while they're in the midst of this war. It's kind of a cool idea. You can explore so much there. Not really this show. There is kind of the episodic nature to it, but it is just really weird. So knowing nothing about the Halo lore religiously, knowing a little bit about it, I went into the show with tempered expectations. The reviews were mixed, middling at best. I didn't know what to expect. Frankly, I didn't care. I just didn't care. If it was going to completely depart from the source material, that's fine. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. You do not have to be specifically the source material. You can adapt to certain things you want and do what you want in any regards. But a $90 million first season, that's like $10 million an episode, hundreds of script rewrites, that worries me because suddenly you're not just adapting the novels, or if there's a comic book, or if there's a video game you're adapting, suddenly you're thinking, I can do this in a different way and change it for the better or the worse. I'm here to say, this show, well, mediocre at best, probably doesn't do it for the better. Again, I don't know anything about the world, but from what I saw, this does not do service to the brand of Halo. And I'm not saying it's doing a disservice, because that's the problem with this show and everything like it. It is just so mediocre. It is so average. It is just exactly a big budget science fiction thing on television with mediocre cinematography, with similar scripts and ideas you've seen before. That's a big problem for me with this show, is these scripts are so obvious. They are so easy. It is almost formulaic where you can see the character's trajectory in their arc, and it's just frustrating. But I'm used to it, so I give it a pass sometimes. But when you can feel a line coming, or a character arc coming, or the motivation for a character coming because you've seen that archetype in everything it's trying to emulate, that's when it becomes a problem. And some of that is Halo. There's a lot of that, I think, in the earlier moments of the story where you're like, okay, here's clearly where this character is going to go. Here's how he breaks away from this. Here's what we're doing with the bureaucracy side of things, the political side of things, the scientific side of things. And it's frustrating and boring. It's definitely one of those shows that takes a minute to find itself. After a stellar first episode, I shouldn't say a stellar first episode. After a stellar maybe 30 minutes in the first episode, I'm like, you know what you're doing. The alien designs look good. The cinematography looks okay. The lighting is a big issue for me, what we'll get to in a bit there. But you have great action. That's all in focus. It looks really cool. You're not shying away from leaning into your craziness or your source material. And then it just goes, no, but what if we just watch people talk in a boardroom about these people we should be exploring? Or like, what if we just had that reluctant young character show up for no real reason? I'm fine for turning your lead character into a father figure or a parental role. It has made for great stories throughout video games, comic books, TV shows, movies, forever. It's done good. But it feels so forced in this show where this young woman, I think her name's Quan Ho or something like that, she joins up with Master Chief very early on, and the part of the storyline with him involves her, and then it's just like this weird idea of like, why does she like him? Why does he like her? Very weird. It doesn't perfectly work at every turn. And that's kind of the problem with a show like this. It is so obvious where the story is going. And that's not a bad thing. Look, I couldn't get through Foundation on Apple because I thought it was just trying too hard. I feel like this show is also trying too hard, but in a different capacity where it's like, let's cram in a lot of details without actually doing anything specific. Let's try to shoehorn in these ideas from a game or from a novel that you know without actually committing to them. It's very fascinating. And I can completely understand why a longtime fan of this series or this franchise would be annoyed. Or just like, this isn't what I want. And I'm also somebody who defends the artist behind the camera. If you have a vision that's not exactly the source material, make your shit anyways. I don't care. Do what you want to make your story. But the problem with this is, it wants to rush its story so fast to become the thing it needs to be that should have just been the thing in the first place. Everybody wants to do the story before the actual story begins, but your audience is smart enough to know your story begins. Look, I've been reading some comments online, and people that I respect and trust who know things about Halo have been saying Master Chief's arc throughout the show is leading to where he's going to be in the video games or where we kind of know him as a character. So I'm like, okay, makes sense, I guess. You're doing different things with the idea of like the Halo and the war and all that, and I can get behind that. If a fan is telling me it's going in the right direction, that's cool. I can support that completely. Fine by me. So yeah, there is an arc here. There's an actual story being presented, but it's like, why don't you just start where you end up? Because your audience can fill in the blanks about that anyways. They know what's happening. And that's the thing too. You're not getting in that many new people for Halo because of the gatekeeping and the people involved. That's just a lot. And you're going to shy away from things that are going to make people uncomfortable. I get it. So whatever, it's fine. A meddling story with easy scripts, simple ideas that can please the audiences and displease them at the same time. It's taking no real chances, except for the fact that Master Chief has sex. Apparently that is a big controversial opinion. Look, that's a topic for another day, but all I'm going to say is more sex in movies, please. Like, why not? Whatever. That's fine. This is $90 million. Okay? These 9 episodes, $90 million. Does it look good? At times it does. I've been saying this for a long time. I want to reiterate it here too. Halo is kind of like, I think, one of the best representations of we have reached a certain limit in terms of our VFX, our visual effects, where we can't pass that wall yet. Maybe Avatar 2 will pass it, but we're at that point where the concepts and designs have all reached that point where nothing new is being presented. It's just being rehashed or redone in a different coat of paint. And that's okay. But I really felt it in here where I'm like, this doesn't feel as original as it should. It feels very much like other shows in this genre that are currently on television and on film we've seen before. And that sucks when you're doing Halo. When I watch a show based on one of the most popular video game franchises, I want my first thought to be, wow, this looks like the game. I do not want my first thought to be, wow, this looks like a show on Amazon. Wow, this looks exactly like something I just saw on Apple TV. And that's just the problem with today's visual effects, is we can't beat that wall again. It's going to be hard to find that next step to make things different or unique. And when we do, it's kind of criticized for being too off the wall. So I get playing it safe. That's fine. And I can get behind that. The big world designs, they look good for the most part. There's times where it looks cheap. I think the practical effects they do use at times are pretty good. If like some of the creature designs, they feel realer than just VFX. And I don't know if they use practical or visual for some of them. It's just an interesting idea. Because sometimes I'm like, this looks really good. This looks real worldly. I'm really digging that. And other times you're like, ooh, this is interesting. Not good interesting. Not like blurred background terrible, but just like, ooh, this looks rushed, and oh, this looks cheap. It's okay though. The Spartan suits themselves, they look really good. They look very much like that Mandalorian style where it's these people in this armor wearing these suits looking impressive. That looks amazing to me. Every time you see them, Whether it's CG or practical, those suits look fantastic. That is like the highlight of, I think, the actual visual department for me, is seeing the way these big, bulky characters stand out in a crowd. That's very impressive. It looks great. It feels great. Then you just put them in some of the worst lighting out there because, ooh boy, this is a thing with modern shows. The lighting is sometimes all over the place. It doesn't feel naturalistic anymore. It feels like we are on a set and we can't hide it with film grain or anything. It just feels like there are so many bright lights all around us. Shadows are in different places than they should be. Characters are way too bright for the world they're in. And when they're not as bright as they should be and they're in darkness, it looks really fake darkness. And this show really does that, I think, harder than other ones, where you can really feel this is too bright. And again, I haven't played the games. I don't think they're this colorful. Like, there's a darker grayness to it. But that's okay, I guess. Whatever. I can get behind that. Like, that's not going to be a thing everybody notices. But if you are somebody who watches a lot of stuff, you notice when the lighting doesn't feel real. And I think this might just be the way Paramount films stuff, because every one of these streaming services has a certain feel to them. It doesn't have the color effects of a Netflix or Apple. It feels very much just like we're in bright white lights, and that could hurt some things. It certainly does for me. So not knowing anything about the lore, we have some characters in here. First off, like I said, Kwan Ho is the reluctant character who shows up that I don't think is part of the lore. She is a burden and kind of more of a plot device at times than an actual character. She becomes just like a side note later on. It's like, what is the point of any of this then? Why do we have to add this character in here? I think an actual story or just like a device and not a person would be cheaper and maybe could have led to a better story for Master Chief. But whatever, she's fine enough. I genuinely don't care. Cortana, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what you're doing. Makes sense. I'm not going to complain about that. The Dr. Christine Halsey, is that her name? Interesting choice. And this is the other thing where it's like a show like this has to hit every beat. It's like we have to look at this big expansive universe from this side and that side and this one up here and down here. Hit all of these notes. I get why you have her as important. She's kind of just like the one keeping track of the Spartans. It's her division. Why does she have to like be a main part of this? You know, it's like these characters, they're not that important to like the actual story you're trying to tell. And look, I know it's a big war. It's all about a war and a Halo and a Covenant or whatever. Who cares? Like, I get it. The bureaucracy really hurts some stuff like this if it's done poorly. And this is done so half-assed that you really feel it. And she is a character who I think could have been written better, could have done more, did enough to satisfy my need for her to do stuff, but really, you could have tried a little harder. I don't know. There's just so many characters like that. Soren, who is the Spartan that left, he's a fun character. Look, Bokeem's getting some work. I like him. Cool. I don't know. And there's just like, here's the bureaucracy, here's the daughter of the person in charge, here's the other Spartans, here's all these characters you probably know if you read the books or anything, but it's like, I don't care. And you had like the Covenant. Is it the Covenant? I don't even remember. Like, yeah. There's a girl working for them. I was talking to somebody who plays the games and knows this world. There's no girl of the Covenant, like just some random white lady. There's nobody there, I guess. I don't know. Cool. Very prequel-y at times. Oh, boy. And then we have Pablo Schreiber, who is essentially taking on a big commitment. Like, this is a role you have to be prepared to talk about the rest of your life. Okay? This is your Pedro Pascal's The Mandalorian thing. You'd want a voice that's iconic and recognizable because he's going to be wearing the helmet in every scene. We don't know who Master Chief is. We can't do that. You know. He's out of that helmet more often than he's in it. So be prepared for that if you're not. And he just looks like Pablo Schreiber. I don't know. It's fine. Again, I have no personal attachment to Master Chief. So having him take his helmet off, having him be like a dad figure to characters, having him, get laid, I don't give a shit. If that's going to do it for this story, it's fine. And he is pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a lead like this. There is enough emotion involved, but at the same time, not enough emotion involved. So, a mixed bag to say the least. He does fine. The action looks good with him. He has that brooding face better than anybody. And eventually you do get to the point in the story where it feels like this is where we could start an actual thing. So that's kind of cool. Just so much about this show is bad. And that's the part of it I cannot enjoy. There are things I do like. I do enjoy the action. It's a nice, clean-looking action. I, for the most part, think the visual effects are very solid. I do think the story is compelling, to say the least. It is cliched, it is lazy at times, and it adds too many characters for its own good. But that is pretty much every show. Sometimes you get things wrong. Is it Halo? Is it the thing Halo fans have been waiting their whole lives for? I don't think so. And that could lead into its own topic of what a video game show or movie should be. And it's like, you are that character when you are playing those games. You are controlling the narrative in essence. There is a story being driven for you, but you are in control of those characters. And when you put that on film in any capacity, it loses that specialness to it because you are no longer telling this character how to behave. You are forcing yourself to enjoy how somebody else is doing it. It's like watching somebody else play your favorite video game and doing a level in a way you wouldn't do that level, you know? And that's always going to be the case with a video game on film in any capacity. You're never going to get it right because you are not the one doing it. And that's okay. You still have the games to play, but just know Master Chief does hang some ass in this show. Take that as you will. He also hangs out with a lot of lame characters, goes to some pretty boring places, but sometimes, just sometimes, you get a good Cortana joke. Just sometimes, the bureaucracy, it's kind of fun. Just sometimes, you blow off a child's head. Not all the time, though. Sometimes it's actually pretty good at what it does, but not often. Not often. But hey, I know Halo fans who really like the show. I know Halo fans who don't like the show. All I can say is, it exists, and is our Halo broken? I don't think it is. I think our Halo is just here to fill time until the next thing happens. Such is life with most of these shows now, but that's what I got for you. There's Halo, a middling bag of middling nothingness. But Master Chief has sex, and you Halo fans, you're going to complain about that for some reason. So Halo, season number 1, I'm going to give 5 out of 10. So thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.